Sisters, Feast of Tabernacles is coming, and I thought this would be the perfect time to start a little series all about getting prepared for the feast. Because if you're anything like me, you know how quickly feast time can sneak up on you. Now, we knew it was coming. It's not like somebody called us yesterday and said, "Oh, by the way, Tabernacles is next week." We've known, but somehow we can still end up running around at the last minute trying to figure out clothes, food, money, travel, what the children need, and what we forgot to order, and everything else. And sisters, I don't want us doing that this year. So throughout this series, we're going to talk about it all. We'll talk about preparing for the tabernacles on a budget. We're going to talk about meal planning. We're going to talk about clothes and packing. We're going to talk about getting the children prepared, not just physically, but actually teaching them about the feast. We're going to talk about getting our homes together, and we're definitely going to talk about how we can get everything done without wearing those out before the feast even starts. But today, we're starting with the big picture. It's time to start preparing. And the first thing I want you sisters to do is very simple: make a list. That's it. We're not eating everything today. We're not cooking anything today. We're not packing today. We're just getting organized. Because I don't know about you, but if I try to keep everything in my head, something is going to get forgotten. I'll be thinking, okay, I need this. I need to order that. I need to remember, to pick this up. I need to make that. I need to ask my husband about this. And then 3 days later, I'm thinking, what was that thing I said I needed to remember? So write it down. Get yourself a notebook. Use your planner. Use your phone if that's what works for you. But somewhere you need a Math Tabernacles list. And I would actually divide the list into sections: clothing, food, travel, household, children, budget, things you need to buy, things you need to order, things you need to prepare, and whatever else applies to your household. Because once you actually see everything, it doesn't feel quite as overwhelming. And here's another thing: don't wait until you have money to make the list. Sometimes we'll say, well, I can't buy anything now. And that's okay. You can still plan. Actually, planning before you start spending money is probably better, because once you have the list, you can start deciding like exactly what you need, what's necessary, what do we already have, what can we reuse, what needs to be replaced, what can wait, what needs to be ordered early, what can I pick up later. And that's how you keep from getting 2 weeks away from East and suddenly realizing, we need $800 worth of stuff. And that brings me to the money. So we're going to do a whole video preparing for tabernacles on a budget, because sisters, feast time can get expensive. And sometimes I think we put unnecessary pressure on ourselves. Everybody doesn't need a new wardrobe. Everything doesn't have to be brand new. You don't have to compete with what another family is doing. You don't have to have the fanciest setup. And we're going to get to all of that a little later. But for right now, start looking at your household and asking, what is this feast realistically going to cost us? Even if you haven't figured out the exact number yet, start thinking about it. And if you start a feast money, start. Even if it's a small amount. Because a little bit put aside over time is better than trying to come up with everything at once. So now let's talk about clothes. And sisters, please hear me on this one. Have everybody try their clothes on early, especially children. Don't look at something hanging in the closet and say, oh, that'll fit. You don't know that. That child may have grown 2 inches since the last time they wore it. Try it on. Make sure it fits. Make sure they have shoes. Make sure they have everything that goes with the outfit. And make sure you have what you need too. Because we sisters have a habit of getting everybody else together first. Children have their clothes. Husband has what he wants. Everybody's looking nice. And then you're standing in front of the closet 2 days before the feast saying, I don't have anything to wear. Yeah, we're not doing that. Not this year. Put yourself on your own list. And we're going to talk more about clothing and packing later in the series, because there's definitely a way to make it easier. But for now, just start checking what everybody already has. Now, food. We're definitely going to have a whole conversation about food, because that's a big part of feast preparation. What are we cooking? What can we make ahead? What can we freeze? What should we buy early? How much food do we actually need? What are we bringing if we're eating with other families? And most importantly, how do we feed everybody without spending the entire feast in the kitchen? Because, sisters, you are keeping the feast too. I don't want you cooking, cleaning, serving, washing dishes, cooking again, cleaning again, and everybody else is somewhere enjoying themselves. No, we're going to plan better than that. For now, though, just start a meal section on your master list. Write down some ideas. Think about family favorites. Think about what feels good for the feast. Think about things that are easy to prepare. You don't have to have the whole menu figured out today. We're just getting started. Now, another thing we need to start thinking about is the children. And I'm not just talking about what they're wearing. Our children need to understand what we're preparing for. Leviticus 23:42 and 43 says, Ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I love that because there's a reason that our generations are supposed to know this. So our children shouldn't think, oh, we're going somewhere, we're just going to have fun. Yes, you want them to have fun. You want them excited. You want them making memories. But you also want them to understand why we're doing this. We're going to do another episode specifically preparing children for tabernacles because I think we can do some really fun things with that. But you can start now, start about it. Read scriptures with them. Let them help with preparation. If they're old enough, get their own list. Let them help planning. Make them part of the prep that I'm doing absolutely everything. And while we're talking about preparation, sisters, don't forget about your home, especially if you're traveling. Before you leave, we're going to talk about getting the houses together because there's nothing worse than having a wonderful feast, traveling back home, being tired, carrying bags through the door, and the house is a mess. Nope. We're going to talk about that too. Laundry, cleaning, the refrigerator, trash, fresh sheets. What needs to be done before you leave so you don't come back home from the feast and immediately feel overwhelmed. That's going to be its own conversation. Now, here's the biggest thing I want us to remember throughout this entire series. Leviticus 23 and 40. And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. Rejoice. Sisters, we're supposed to enjoy this. And that's really why I'm doing this series, because preparation isn't, about trying to make everything perfect. It's about removing some of that unnecessary stress so that when the feast gets here, we're not too exhausted to enjoy what we spent all that time preparing for. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. Your clothes don't have to be the most expensive. Your food doesn't have to look like it came from a restaurant. Your children might act like children. Something might be forgotten. Something might not go according to plan. And it's okay. We're going to prepare the best way that we can, and then we're going to enjoy the feast. And I also don't want us comparing our preparation to somebody else's. And that's another way to make yourself miserable. Somebody else's family may have more to spend. Um, they may have more elaborate clothes. They may have a bigger setup. Somebody, excuse me, somebody may be traveling somewhere you're not going. Good for them. Enjoy your household. Prepare according to what works for your family and according to what your husband has established for your household. You don't have anything to prove to anybody. Now, before we close, I want to give you sisters a little assignment, and it's easy. Sometime this week, sit down and make your Master Feast of Tabernacles preparation list. When you're about to do everything on it, just make the list. Write down everything that you can think of. Um, excuse me. And then we're going to go over the next several episodes. We're going to start, working through the list together. We're going to take one area at a time so that we're not trying to do everything at once. I don't want us get, exhausted preparing for the feast. I want us prepared enough so that when the feast is here, we can, actually enjoy ourselves. So, sisters, it's just the beginning. Get your notebook, start your list, start with the closets, start thinking about the budget, start getting your house ready. because the Feast of Tabernacles, it's coming and we got some preparing to do. So I will see you part two.